Turn with me to Proverbs chapter 31. You're all familiar with the second part of this chapter, speaking of the woman of virtue. But the context of this chapter is the words of a woman, the words of the mother of King Lemuel, which may well be a name for Solomon. We'll read her words through to verse 23. Chapter 31. The words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. What, my son? And what, the son of my womb? And what, the son of my vows? Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be of heavy hearts. Let him drink, and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. Open thy mouth for the dumb and the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good, and not evil, all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth a field, and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hand she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry, her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he sitteth among the elders of the land. Our text is verse 3, Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. Last time we heard about a dangerous animal, do you remember? The horse leech. We were not to be like him, who spends his life sucking blood, sucking the life out of others, out of this discontent, desire continually for more. Well, there's a sense in which something similar is being warned of here. Another creature that can suck the life out of a man. And that creature is woman. This is a serious warning before us. A warning given by a woman in these words, this prophecy that Lemuel's mother taught him. Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. We see here this warning given first in specific, and then in general. So let's consider the specific warning first. Give not thy strength unto women. First, it's a warning about strength, and then the giving of it. So first, the strength. Give not thy strength. What's assumed here is that Lemuel has a notable strength. Now, this is true concerning his office. He's called a king, and perhaps this is a figure for King Solomon. But he is some king with great power, and that is a sort of strength. But especially in contrast with women here, what's assumed is the strength particular to a man. And the Bible assumes and speaks of this strength. For example, in 1 Corinthians 16, when it calls all in the church, men and women, to quit themselves as men and to be strong. It is proper to a man to be strong in contrast to 1 Peter 3:7, the weaker vessel, the woman. And this is why John, when he writes in 1 John 2 to the whole church, he says, I write to you, young men, because ye are strong. That could be a figure for all Christians. It could be simply an address to the sector of the church that is most physically strong, strong in their nature by creation, the young man. That's what Proverbs tells us in 20:29, that the glory of young men is their strength. And Lemuel's mother is saying, this is thy glory. This is particular to you as both a king and a man, that you are strong. And the warning then is not to give thy strength to women. Now, let's be clear about what verse is not being warned about. It's not saying that he should have no dealings at all with women, nor is it saying that women in themselves, simply by being women, are more sinful in the respect that it is a sin even to associate with them, or that there is no such thing as a good and faithful woman. That would deny what she goes on to say. She does say that there are very few of them, verse 10, who can find a virtuous woman, but all that follows assumes that by God's grace, there are and have been faithful, virtuous, strong women in the world. So this isn't an opposition to women as such, but it is recognizing that in this sinful world especially, women are a great temptation and can, and often do, steal the strength of men. This can happen in three ways. The first is when men put undue trust in women. Now, again, by grace, a woman can be in her place trustworthy. We hear that of this woman, that her husband trusts in her. So, if you look in Proverbs 31, a little later, verse 11, the heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. But that safety of trusting is based upon her character that's good and faithful, and that can't be said of most women in this earth. In fact, we have a warning from the very first woman of all, Eve, who was not trustworthy, and that she, by undue familiarity with the tempter and by refusing to flee from his temptation, was deceived and fell into great sin and became the occasion for her husband to sin and fall, and with him, all of us. No greater example, in fact, of a woman stealing strength from men. She was the occasion for Adam to lose all of his spiritual strength, for him to have the image of God ruined in him, to lose that knowledge, righteousness, and holiness, which was essential to his nature, and not only for him, but all of us to lose the same. This is a great and serious warning not to put undue trust in women. Adam too easily trusted his wife and followed her in her sin. The second thing that this forbids is being too indulgent to women. I would distinguish here. Paul warns us in Colossians that men must not be bitter with their wives. Peter tells us in 1 Peter 3 that we must be understanding with them in their weakness. And this is right and good. Men ought to be very tender and gracious and kind to their wives and not expect of them more than they ought, recognizing that they are weaker. But this does not give them an excuse to make their weakness an occasion to cultivate sin in their wives. And this is very common in this world. Many men with some twisted desire to please women will allow women to go on in all sorts of evil. This is the scourge of feminism today. It is basically a demonic compact between men and women to allow women to try to be men and for men to do all they can to help women do that. This is evil. It takes a few particular forms, and there are some words that we have for this that you should know, so you'll be warned. One is an older word, and that is uxorious. This is related to the Latin word for wife, uxor, and it means a man who is too indulgent to his wife. We have a more common term today, and it's a wife guy. I don't know if you've heard that one, but this is common, at least on the internet, and it describes someone who seems to be always following his wife. He's always doing everything he can to make her happy, even at the expense of their marriage and of his own calling, so that it seems this man can never do anything without his wife's permission. And everything he does seems calculated just to make his wife happy. This is not right. Another term we use for such men as regards other women besides their wives is a white knight, from stories of medieval times in which a white knight would come in and rescue the damsel in distress. And women love to play that damsel in distress today. And men will rush in to help them, but by the help is meant helping them to sin or helping them to try to be men. This is an evil thing. It's very common. In these two ways, by trusting women too much, by being too indulgent to them, a man gives his strength to them and proves himself to be very weak. Indeed, these are two common forms of effeminacy, which is a grave sin in which a man gives up his natural strength and lives with a weakness that is more proper to women. He gives up his own nature in this way. But the third way, I think, is more directly spoken of here, in which men give their strength to women, is by lust and the sins that flow from it. This is all too common in this world, that men are led astray by wicked women into whoredom and adultery. And we have entire chapters of the Proverbs written against this grave evil. Proverbs 5, also with part of 6 and most of 7. In chapter 5, we have a father now, just like this mother, speaking to a son. My son, attend unto my wisdom. And it says, verse 3, the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil, but her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. And the phrase of our text, give thy strength to women, is explained at greater length here. What will happen if you go after this woman and commit sin with her? Verse 9, lest thou give thine honor unto others. How similar. Giving thy strength to women, you'll give thine honor unto others, thy years unto the cruel, lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger, and thou mourn at last when thy flesh and thy body are consumed. A powerful explanation of what our text says in fewer words, of giving a man's strength unto women. We have, as an example of this, King Solomon himself. And if indeed this passage is to Solomon, then we can take this as a personal and deep confession of his own sin. He was guilty of that second form of being too indulgent to women, in that women led him astray to even build temples to foreign gods. He sought in an evil way to please his wives and displease God. But the heart of it, the root of it, was this third thing, that he had too much desire for the pleasure of women, and thus he accumulated to himself hundreds of wives and concubines. His father David set a precedent here in taking multiple wives to himself, and himself committing sin with Bathsheba. But Solomon greatly excelled his father in these evils, and they took away his strength. These women became the occasion of his downfall and of the division of the entire kingdom. So these warnings are not idle. Give not thy strength unto women. That's the specific. Now the general warning follows it and underlines it. Nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. The idea is there is a particular way in which a man and a king should walk, and he ought not give his ways to destruction, that is, turn to a path that will lead to destruction. And that particularly which destroyeth kings. What's assumed here is that there are many ways that destroy kings. There are many things that would destroy kings. Satan has his particular way with the kings of this world, and nothing is more common than for a king to be ungodly. Lemuel's mother knows that. She goes on to speak of another thing, strong drink, drunkenness, a particular way in which Satan has destroyed many a king and kept him from doing his work, which is, verse 8 and 9, to do justice, especially for the oppressed. Whether it's women or drink or any other thing, there are countless temptations to kings and to all men, and all of them will lead, as all sin does, unto destruction. And so flee. We've seen the specific and the general, and we've seen the doctrine that I'll summarize with, that men are not to give their strength to women. And I think we've seen enough evidence of it from the scripture that we can move on to application, which is urgent today. And I want to bring application to two groups, both of whom are here. The first is to the women, or the girls, and then to the men. Girls, if men are not to give their strength to you, then you are not to take it from the men. And in this, I would bring you again the warning of our first mother, Eve. You ought to weigh the evil that she did. Now, she did not bring our whole race into sin herself. That was Adam's sin. But she was the occasion for Adam to sin. She considered herself stronger than she was. And she talked too long with the tempter. And he, as 1 Peter 2 says, deceived her, and she was in the transgression. There are two remedies to this. The first is to be humble. And if you humbly recognize your own weakness, that will help you to be kept from abusing it. You have a good example to you in King Lemuel's mother. Just think about the humility this takes for a woman to tell her son how dangerous women are. She's in a sense, condemning her own self. She has a good conscience, no doubt, as a godly woman. But she is saying, women can do this to men. If indeed this is Solomon's mother, then she knew this by experience, by her own evil experience, that women destroy kings. And we could take this perhaps as a confession on our own part too. Use her bad example, then, if that be such, and at least use her words to prevent you ever doing this by being humble. Recognizing 1 Peter 3:7, you are the weaker vessel. And therefore you, in a particular way, need God's strength that weakness would not be abused. And then second, already make up in your mind that you will not follow the wicked women of this world in what we often describe as feminism, this desire to live outside of your own place and calling and your nature, and to try to be and to compete with men. In all these ways that the women of this world do, they are in so many ways stealing the strength of men, sometimes by directly competing with them in the workforce, sometimes by refusing in marriage or before marriage to even be their helpers, meet for them as they were created to be. In marriage, vying with their husbands and not being those in whom the heart of the husband can safely trust, but also by refusing altogether marriage and childbearing, as so many women of this world, and even women in the church, many under plausible pretexts, do. They give up their very nature, which is to give life, and they instead deal death. Just think of what it means that women refuse to bear children. They are, in this way, most literally stealing the strength of men by refusing to give birth, not just to other women, but to men as well. Men don't even exist because women refuse to do this duty. So these are things you need to resolve in your mind that you will never do. But then, second, and especially, this text comes to men. And you need to make up your mind that whatever women do, whatever weakness that they show, it will not be an occasion for you to show weakness. Because however shameful it is for a woman to take advantage of her own weakness and fall into these female sins, it is much more shameful for you to follow her in her weakness, because you are not the weaker vessel. You are by nature the stronger vessel. And we can bear patiently with women's weakness, but with men, they do not have that excuse. Thy strength is what's appealed to here, and I would appeal to the same to you, men and young men. I write to you, so to speak, young men, because you are strong, and you must not give that strength to women. Make up your mind now that you will not be uxorious when you are married, that you will lead your life and rule your household for her good, yes, and in that sense for her pleasure, but your wife's pleasure will not be the rule of your household. It will be God's pleasure, to whom you will give an account, and your wife will not be able to stand there between you and Christ on the last day. Resolve to be faithful in these things, and resolve also to refuse wicked women, to refuse to give your heart and your body to them. In this, remember the wisdom of Job, who made a covenant with his eyes, knowing well that the eyes are the gate to the soul. He said, I won't look, I will not think, that is, in an evil way with lustful intent, about any woman. And this is a good resolution for you to make today. And I underline it with a warning that otherwise women will take away your strength. Otherwise, they will destroy you. Let's stand and pray.